Remember when theaters were packed for films like The Hangover, Anchorman, or Superbad?
No,
What was once a sea of laughs is now drier than a desert.
I don't remember.
Where did all the comedies go? We're going to talk about it on the cast Backstage Banter.
Whoosh! Opening sequence. Da 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 da.
What's up, Morgan? How you doing today, buddy?
Good. We're gonna talk about one of my favorite movie genres,
Much better than when we were talking horror movies, huh? Because you were not a fan of horror movies, if I
but I
recall.
but I could talk a lot about them because boy howdy did I have an opinion, didn't I?
You did, and if anybody missed that episode, they should go back and listen to it
You
because
should.
that was a fun episode. I thought we had some good talk on that one.
Link in the
But
description below.
nice. Way to set up the call to action. I'm proud of you. No, today we're talking about comedies. And I'm curious, you and I have both been, we have a handful of acting credits to our names. Have you ever participated in a comedy? Have you done any comedies?
Um, so this is wild to me, but apparently I have a knack for comedy. Pretty much every teacher that I've had and any castmate that I ever got to know, um, I use the term friends in sparing situations, so I guess I would call these colleagues. Um, Everyone seems to think I have a sort of natural knack for comedy, which I always like appreciate getting the compliment. I always try to take that with all due with everything that's due to me, I guess. But I've always wanted to be like considered a serious dramatic artist. So whenever I
Okay.
got that feedback, I was like, oh, like shoot, I mean, like I don't necessarily want to be a character actor.
I think a lot of people think that way, but I mean, comedies are hard. I think it's actually
Mm,
harder
yeah.
for a lot of people to do comedy than it is to do serious dramatic roles. Comedy, and we'll get into like what makes a good comedy, but not everybody can do it. It's not, you kind of have to be built for it. It's hard to train yourself to be funny.
I've also, in my older, wiser years, I've also like come to terms with the fact that comedy is actually a very difficult medium. I
Mm,
try really hard to be respectful of all crafts and all mediums, and I'm not gonna outright say that comedy is harder than like serious drama, but there is a um formula to comedy that if you don't hit, whether that's instinctively or because you've trained in comedy and know how to hit it, that makes it difficult in
mm.
in a musical sort of way.
Interesting.
Because there are like rules to comedy that don't exist in drama, so to speak. So and there's
I
always
think
the
that's
argument of
debatable.
like you can break
I
the
think it's
rules of
debatable.
comedy, but
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, if you're breaking the rules of comedy, that means that there are rules that you're breaking.
Yeah, I see what you're talking about, like things like the rule of three,
Rule
for
of
example.
three and beats and setting up a punchline and like all that kind of subverting
Yeah.
expectations.
So, did you have any actual projects that you had to be in that was a comedic project? Do you have any anecdotes from something you did that was on a
Yes.
comedy?
So
Yeah, I'd love to hear it.
I did a pretty like slapsticky kind of comedy um that pulled and it was so interesting to work on because it pulled inspiration from Wes Anderson in terms of how he sets up frame and how precise and symmetrical and the use of color and all of that stuff, and it was very the cinematography and the color palette were very inspired by Wes Anderson, but it was like a slapstick sort of comedy. It
Hmm,
was a
okay,
short. I think it was the official version that was released was like 3 minutes. But we filmed enough footage that you probably could have cut it into like a 15-minute thing. So I don't know how
sure.
they got it to 3 minutes. But it
Isn't
was
it wild when
called
that happens sometimes? I mean, like, you need so much footage just to get in 3 minutes, and that's with anything. It's not just specific to comedies, but like that. It's always crazy to me how much.
Yeah.
extra work you do that never sees it past the cutting room floor.
And there was one scene in particular that I really loved filming and that I thought was really funny and I thought was going to be in the final cut and it didn't make it in. So that was a little disappointing. Luckily I was able to get the behind the scenes footage, so I was able to
Mm.
get somebody filming us filming that scene. So I at least have that.
That's better than nothing. Yeah, that's a shame that you love the scene so much and then it ends up getting cut. That sucks.
But
Um,
that particular project was a lot of fun to work on because it was you would essentially set basically it was a series of these situations getting set up, and then it was about this guy who's just endlessly optimistic. So like for instance, he would be baking, he'd be like mixing mix or whatever, and he would realize that he was using a flashlight instead of a spoon to mix the batter, and it would be like an
okay,
oh well kind of thing, and it would be like this is how you do it. And then he would keep
interesting.
mixing it with the flashlight. So it was a lot of fun. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I bet. I've never been a part of a comedy. I don't think any of the gigs I've ever done have been comedic ones. And I would love to do a comedy. There's two things I have yet to do in any sort of performance. I've never got to be do it. I've never done a comedy, and I've never been a villain. And I would love to do that too.
Mm,
I really want to be a villain. I think that would be a lot of fun. But I think it'd be fun to do a comedy too. And I think in college we were trying to do like this was there was some kind of like contest or something where you could submit a short, and it was like almost like building a television pilot. And I think we started a project that would have been a comedy, but it ended up being we had too short of a runway by the time we figured it out, and we didn't end up it didn't go anywhere. That was the closest I think I got to actually doing a comedic role in something. But hey, there's still time. Maybe it'll happen eventually.
that could be one of the projects that we pursue with our
Well,
studio.
and
I will say, um, approach a comedy project with caution because it'll get you. One of the things about comedy that I've learned is it is immensely fun to do,
yeah,
but um, days on set are long, and comedy is very high energy. And usually at about lunch, you have to sit yourself down and be like, "It is a new day, and I have so much energy."
got to start pounding the Red Bulls, figuring out how to
Yeah.
power through. Yeah, um, yeah, I can imagine that that would be the case. And for as far as comedies go, I feel like in general, actually, I shouldn't say I feel like because it is a fact that there's a lot less of them than there used to be. Have you
Yeah.
noticed that there's not nearly as many comedies that go into theaters as there once was?
I have noticed that comedy as a genre, like a comedy movie, has been falling off as something in the modern era. And it's I don't know that I necessarily miss it as a standalone genre because
Interesting.
all of the other genres are kind of making it a point to be hyphenated comedy movies. So like you don't get straight action anymore in the sense that like Speed was a straight action, but if Speed were made today, there would be a
It
lot
would have
of like
comedic elements.
yeah, there would be
Yeah.
places where they'd be like, "We need to break up the action here with some comedy." Like, I feel like that's becoming a very common thing.
Yeah, I do. I do agree with you. I think that there is a lot of subgenres that kind of mix and match from different types of movies together now. But I do miss true comedies, and that might be the difference between us age wise because you're younger than I am. Like that early 2000s, like 2000 to 2010 ish, was like the golden age of comedies. I mean, we had so many good dedicated comedies came out, and maybe that just was maybe you were just too young at the time to really appreciate those. But I mean, we got like Wedding Crashers, Anchorman, Dodgeball. like all the Judd Apatow movies. Like there was a bunch of stuff that came out in that window, and I mean, it was like one after another, and these were like big blockbuster movies. People
Yeah.
would go see them, everybody would be talking about them, and then they kind of fizzled out, and you don't get those anymore.
I have a theory, and this is 100% from my own perspective. So don't come after me in the comments.
Come after
I
them, it's fine. I
I
encourage it actually.
I don't remember necessarily the this golden age of comedy with like Dumb and Dumber and any of the other ones that you mentioned. And when I was when I guess I was old enough to like intellectualize this stuff, the comedy movies at the time for me were like Jackass. And I don't know how people generally feel about Jackass, but for me, it was like brain rot before brain rot was a thing. And for
Yeah.
me, that was my impression of what a comedy movie was. And it was kind of sad to a degree because I'm somebody who loves like the Marx Brothers and Charlie Chaplin. And I have a deep love for comedy as a storytelling device, but like Jackass was not anything. I could almost liken it to my opinion to horror films where what story was Jackass trying to tell, man? Like what was going on?
Yeah, I get why people would classify Jackass as a comedy. I don't know that it's not what I think of when I think of comedies, right? Because I think that that is more outrageous. I think it's humorous because it's outrageous and
Mm.
it makes us feel something because we're watching these people do these terrible things to themselves, and it's almost like a visceral reaction that it's funny because they're getting it's kind of slapsticky, but it's I don't know, it's kind of like its own thing. When I'm talking about comedies, I mean more of like a traditional comedy that does have a story, does have, there's not scripting in Jackass like there is with a traditional comedic movie. Um, so I never got into it either. It sounds like both of us were not, Jackass wasn't for us. Do you have favorite comedy movies? Is there something that did really make you laugh that resonated with you and stuck with you for a while?
That's a that's a tough question because comedy this is such a funny thing for me to be talking about. Comedy kind of usually goes over my head.
Okay.
Which is hilarious because I apparently am gifted as a comedy actor or as someone who intuitively understands how comedy works. And comedy kind of like usually goes over my head.
Well,
Um
I will say this: there are different kinds of comedy, right? And not everybody is going to have the same type of humor. So maybe instead of asking you for specific comedies that you enjoy, is there a type of comedic movie that you enjoy? Are you more of a slapsticky kind of guy or more of a satire kind of guy? Is there a type of humor that really kind of tickles your funny bone?
not really. Like for me if it's funny, whether it's slapstick or satire. For me if it's funny,
Interesting.
it's funny.
Okay.
I mean like this is not a good example, but I guess like comedy movies that Morgan likes, El Dorado, which I believe is a DreamWorks film. It's animated. It's not even like a live action
I don't think I've
movie.
seen that.
El Dorado is also technically a kids movie, which I mean, I grew up with it. Like El Dorado came out when I don't know how old I was, but I was a kid.
Sure.
Um, because El Dorado was in the same era as Atlantis and Treasure Planet and that group of stuff.
Was that around the at like Emperor's New Groove kind of time
Yep.
too? Okay.
Mhm. Yeah, which Emperor's New Groove, I really like. I guess that would
Okay.
be a comedy movie that I like. The thing is, I was very much a Disney kid growing up. Watched a lot of Disney and DreamWorks, and I didn't watch a lot of things with people in them, like what we would now call live action. I
Okay.
was very much brought up on cartoons and animated movies.
I feel like that should go on a T-shirt at some point, like things with people in them. Like, what kind of movies do you like, Morgan? things with people in them. Um, I can tell you some of my favorite comedies. I have always had an affinity for Dumb and Dumber. I love that movie. I don't know
Okay.
if you've seen
I've
it.
never seen it.
Um, oh my God, you're missing out. Only the first one. There was a prequel that they made, terrible. There was a sequel that they made like way after the fact, also not very good. The original is great. I love Dumb and Dumber. I really like Airplane. Airplane is very
Oh, okay.
slapsticky.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Airplane is a great movie, though. I mean, so funny, so many good lines.
That
I
one's like
also
dry
really
humor. That's like dry humor because it's very English.
some of it, yeah. I mean, like there's a lot of different characters in there, and they kind of have their own thing, right? So some of it is very dry, but some of it is just so goofy and stupid. I laugh to this day every time I see a clip of I forget what is his name, Stryker, the pilot. And it's like, I got a drinking problem, and he takes a sip, and it just like he throws it over his shoulder, like he cannot get the cup to his mouth. I just think it's so funny. It's just
Yeah.
it's so stupid, but it's so funny. And then like another good one that I like a lot is Borat. Have you seen the first Borat movie?
No, that one I haven't seen.
Oh my God, that has got to be one of the funniest movies I've ever seen in my life, and you should watch it. I mean, it's very outrageous. A lot of it is pretty offensive, but from a craft perspective, it is so incredible that he did what he did because Sacha Baron Cohen obviously plays the character of Borat. He is playing a character in a movie of people that like 95% of them are not actors. They're real people he's interacting with, but he's
Oh.
he's interacting with them as a character that is he's supposed to be a news reporter from another country, from a Eastern European country, Kyrgyzstan or whatever, or Kazakhstan, that's what it is. From Kazakhstan, and
Did you?
he it, and it's and he's got like this like language barrier, so when he does not like his customs are weird, his the way he like he's has no social boundaries, he understands things incorrectly, and it's just the situations, it's so awkward and so cringy. Oh, it's
It sounds like
fantastic, it's so funny.
a Mr. Bean type of thing.
Kind of, it is kind of, but not. Mr. Bean is just more like awkward,
Right, but he's
where
interacting with real like all of the Mr. Bean stuff, with the exception of I think the feature films, all of the Mr. Bean stuff is literally him interacting with normal
with real
people.
people.
With yeah, with normal
Really?
regular
I
people.
didn't know that. I thought that they were actors in like in the old Mr. Bean show.
Oh, I didn't know there was a show.
There was a show I think on HBO. I think it was on HBO. There was a Mr. Bean show at some point, and I thought it was all characters, but maybe he did a similar thing. But it's really funny. But all this kind of leads me to my point is that there are different types of comedies, of
Mhm.
course, and all of them have seemed to dry up recently.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that is because of the way that the movie industry is now, right? The film industry focuses so much on big blockbusters. I mean, like medium-sized budget movies are basically gone in general. So
Yeah.
when you're trying to figure out what you're going to back as a studio, what you're going to get produced, you're going to
Yeah.
aim for something that's going to make $1 billion, and you would rather spend 500 million or 400 million on a movie that you think is going to land $1 billion than to spend $50 million on something that might make you 55 or 60. So I think that's a huge part of why we don't see the same type of movies that way, because that's where those usually landed. We're in those like medium-sized budget films.
Yeah. I think that that is a fair assessment of how the movie industry has changed, but I I'm sort of an advocate for consumer buying power. And I believe that you as the consumer have a lot more power than we admit to. Which is if you go and you see a movie, like vote with your dollar, if you go and you see a movie, then you're saying to the studio, I like these kinds of movies. Please make more of these. And if a studio is looking at the numbers and they're like, so our comedy movies don't make huge profit, that means people don't want to see them. The only logical choice as a business is to be like, well, what does make money? Let's make more of those.
I don't disagree with you to an extent. However, I think that there does become a line where, I do think that movie studios try to make movies that they think people are going to want to see. They often don't, right? I mean, they often just give a lot of notes, or they make a lot of changes, or they are just wildly off base with what they're in there. They're trying to play to too many demographics at once, which ends up being
Oh,
counterproductive.
do you know what this reminds me of? This is a comedy that I like a lot. This
Okay.
modern comedy, The Studio. I'm sure you're all familiar with it, and this is not news to anybody. But the Seth Rogen comedy series, The Studio, which is literally about how studios shoot themselves in the foot when they're making stuff.
I've not seen it, but I've heard about this.
Dude, you
Uh,
gotta. I'll watch Borat if you watch The Studio.
okay. I mean, how many episodes? Because it's a TV
Eight.
series, right?
It's eight.
It's eight. Okay. So I'm lining you up for about an hour and a half. I got to watch what, 8 hours worth of television?
It's a fair trade as far as I'm concerned.
Okay. I'll watch it. But there are multiple pieces to this. That's only the one that I do believe that they are trying to. There's only so much time, right, to produce a movie. Like even for a studio, like they can't run
Mm.
a thousand projects at once. So I do think that they try to hedge their bets on things that they think are going to make the most amount of money. But a lot of that has also been stemming from the fact that now movie studios are really focused on overseas markets, and humor does not translate well overseas like an action movie would, or like a whimsical movie would, because I think that those are more universal. Humor
I
is very
actually
like sectioned by, a lot more region based, and than like other type of genres are, in my opinion.
I actually to some degree I actually disagree with you because Rowan Atkin actually talks about how Mr. Bean is a global phenomenon. Now,
Sure.
Mr. Bean has the benefit of he doesn't speak, so there's no language barrier. However, another comedy uh, group, I guess, that I would point to that is also a global phenomenon are the Marx Brothers. The Marx Brothers have a pretty big global audience as well, and they do speak, all except for Harpo. Um, and that is also like very well received as far as comedy goes. So I would actually disagree that
Yeah, but
comedy
you're
doesn't.
pointing to the exceptions, not the rule, because I think in general, what we find funny is different than what somebody in China might find funny. The type of humor that we're accustomed to, because especially if humor is one political, right, which may not apply to another region if they're talking about, or if it's trying to be based on relatable life experiences. I mean, culture is different
Sure.
from an everyday life perspective too, so it's not going to land the same way.
I would
Um,
agree with you on satire, but I would actually push back because we find a lot of British humor here funny, and that's culturally funny. But we find
Do
British
we
humor
though?
funny in the
I
same
mean,
way that over
some of
there
it.
they
I mean,
find American humor funny. That's why American comedy movies do well overseas. So I
they don't though. That's my point, is that they don't do that well. And maybe there are some markets, like maybe you can take one of our movies and throw it in England where it's similar enough that maybe they can get that. But that's one market. When we're talking about global markets, a lot of film studios now are pushing for the Chinese market, because that's a huge untapped resource. For a long time, you couldn't even put a movie in China if it was made in the United States. Now you have to, it goes through extreme scrutiny,
Mhm.
and you have to be very cautious of the content that's on there, and
That's true for
the
all
actors that are
genres though.
attached to it. For all genres, yes, but now there's an opportunity to put American films in the Chinese market. So it's an untapped resource, and I don't think that our humor is going to equate to the same kind of humor as somebody who has lived on the total opposite side of the world under different conditions. It's
So
just a very different life experience, and I don't know that it's going to land the
yeah,
same
so the reason that I disagree, I think the reason that I disagree, and if we had numbers in front of us, obviously I would have less of an argument because we would just look at the numbers and we would say, okay, comedy movies don't do good internationally. But I think the reason that I disagree is because I have Asian heritage and I grew up on like M dramas, K dramas, J dramas, and I watched a lot of anime and manga. And I follow a lot of creators from that area of the world. So Korean creators, Japanese creators, and they talk about American influences and they love American stuff over there. And anime has a growing has growing popularity here in the United States. So I actually think that you're seeing globalization happen nowadays where stuff like that I don't think really is culturally restricted. I think that there are still cultural differences. I'm not trying to say that there aren't cultural
Sure.
differences between America and like Japan and America and Korea and America and Singapore. But when you see certain creators talk about how stuff comes over there, how stuff goes over there from here, like how they import like American culture, so to speak, they love it over there. So I don't know that I really see this depreciation in return that you're talking about. Which it could be like if we had the numbers, I could be very wrong. I hear people talk about it and it is American culture is an export that
So
we have.
I I'm on americanfilmmarket.com right now, and I am looking at global box office gross numbers for movies released since 2000 by genre. And it's got it split up where it's domestic, which they consider U.S. and Canada domestic, versus
Okay.
international. So you kind of get like a bar graph that shows you, how much of the money comes in from domestic sources, how much comes in from international. Of the genres which they list, horror, thriller, suspense as one, documentary,
Hey, we called
drama.
it. Didn't we call that? We said that in our last episode. Check that out in the link below.
2 episodes ago, I think it was. So they have horror, thriller, suspense, documentary, drama, romantic comedy,
Really?
and comedy. Those are the ones that they've broken down. Of all of those, the ones that perform the worst internationally are comedies. So comedies, straight
Mm.
comedies, does the worst, where 70% of the money they make is domestic, 30% is international. Romantic comedy is about 35, and then something like horror does the best, where horror is about 55% domestic and 45% international, and everything else is in between. So
Mm.
significantly, there's a significant drop off. And I think, to be honest with you, too, even when you think about, we were talking about like what makes comedies kind of funny, right? I mean, we're talking a little bit about, the rules and that sort of stuff. A lot of it is timing, but a lot of it is also like linguistic choices, right? Like how you deliver a line and
Mm.
sometimes saying something funny. And I think that just because another market speaks a different language, that by itself is going to create a barrier where it's not going to translate the same way because
Mm, mhm.
you know what I mean? Like it may not be a linguistic choice in whatever other language, or if you try to just convert it straight over from English and write a subtitle, that's
Yeah.
lost anyway.
I do think that the language barrier is a thing, and I I did when I brought up the Marx Brothers, I brought that up a little bit, and I would say that dubbing is much more prevalent than it used to be. Now, I think that you still have a localization issue, and I have this complaint all the time with anime, and sometimes a joke doesn't translate in the linguistic sense.
Sure.
So there are some jokes that are like play on words that just don't exist in other languages. So there
Yes.
you're 100% going to lose your audience because there's just no way to bring that over culturally. So there's localization issues, but like something like slapstick, that's always going to translate. Like that's cuz that's action
I
based.
I also disagree in that too, because I think culturally also we have an appreciation for slapstick, and I do think that there are other cultures that would, but I also think that there are cultures that are probably much more, um, I guess for lack of a better term, like proper, right? Like there's certain things like it is not comedic to get smacked in the groin or to, you know what I mean? Like those things,
Sure.
you know what I mean? Like there's a cultural kind of like social norms that that's not funny. That's you know dishonorable or
I've
something,
not
right?
I've not seen that. I see what you're
I'm
saying.
just
I've
saying
not seen that, but
I, I haven't personally seen it either, but I do think that that is a realistic possibility that that kind of
Sure.
stuff would not translate.
Yeah, I mean, like,
Even
the numbers speak, right? So, the fact of the matter is that comedies don't do well abroad, so there's a reason for that. My personal quandary is it because the comedy doesn't translate, or is it because other cultures just don't want comedies?
I don't know. I think it's
Because we also don't want comedies. Because the whole point
I
at the beginning of the episode, you were like, "Why aren't we making comedies anymore?"
so and on that point, this is only one point is the international box office, right? Because I think we're trying to build movies that could ship internationally. That's only one reason why I think that we are not seeing as many comedies now. Another part of this, I believe, is because social media. And I hate to be that person because I know that that's an argument. Like people like to throw social media for everything and blame it, but attention spans have gotten shorter, right?
Yeah, that's
So,
true.
when you have social media, you now have these very short TikToks, especially in the comedic field. Like a lot of comedy comes from small reels or tweets or what. I mean, like it's meme culture, right? Memes were not a thing until I don't know how many years ago, but they're relatively new, newer than movies, right?
Well, yeah,
And now
those are
we,
the digital age. Those are
yeah,
it's a internet thing. It's like the internet
yeah.
culture.
So how long has meme culture been a thing? 10 years? I mean,
It
like,
can't go it can't go further back than the 70s because that's like when the internet first
and even that's
arises. And
yeah,
even
but even
that's
that I
early.
think is even that I think is pushing it. But people go to they go to Instagram, they go to Twitter, they go to YouTube for short, sweet punchlines, right?
Mm,
I mean, like
yeah.
when you look at great comedies, we were talking about Dumb and Dumber, we were talking about Airplane, like these have great quotable lines, and that's what people resonate with. I mean, how many times have you heard if somebody says anything, surely blah 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 after that, you will repeat the blah 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 back to them and then go, and don't call me Shirley, right? Because we all know that line and it is so freaking funny and it hit with us because we love to have little digestible quotes. And that's why short form media is really good for that. And I think that we've kind of made a shift towards that in a lot of ways too. So maybe part of the problem is that we're not looking to theaters to fill that void all the time.
It's an interesting perspective because I think that the reason that comedies have died is a political climate, a reason.
I would agree that's probably
And
part of it.
cuz like I think we're literally or not anymore, but I think we literally witnessed the death of stand-up comedy, which comedy sort of is born out of stand-up. Like comics I feel like are the backbone of comedy, like stand up and improvisation. Like if you've ever gone to go see an improv troupe, like I feel like that's the backbone of comedy. And we see it a lot. Whenever I see, well, I don't know about Jason because Jason is apparently pining for a comedy role, but I see it whenever I see a call for a comedy something. And it always says improv experience, not required. What's the phrasing that they use? Um,
Preferred?
like improv plus or whatever. So I think that that's the backbone of it, and it was very prevalent during the pandemic where they essentially censored the crap out of comics, and they weren't allowed to say certain things. They weren't allowed to make fun of certain groups, and they weren't allowed to make certain jokes. And comedy comedy in tandem with free speech is supposed to be a safe place in the sense that everything's on the table and not a safe place in the sense that you're free from offense. Most comedy is funny because it's offensive. Like it's a weird dynamic. So when you bar people from being offensive, then you sort of bar them from being funny.
Well, I think you bring up an interesting point. I think there's a couple pieces to this. One, I do think that what society deems as funny does change over time too. And some of that depends on what we think is offensive or not offensive or fair game or whatever. I've heard the term punching down when
Mm.
referring to this stuff that like, a lot of times people are like, no, things are fair game as long as you're not punching down, right? Like And I think there was a time when you look back to like older comedians like Richard Pryor, for example, right? Like he was pretty offensive, but it was part of like his character. People accepted like it's offensive and they're not taking it literally. They're saying he's, part of this persona he creates on stage is to be having an offensive kind of viewpoint on stuff. George Carlin's another example.
Yeah,
Um,
great
where
comedian.
now I feel like if somebody makes an offensive comment, it's we have a lot more access. And again, I'm going to go to social media because like you can now complain about it for the world to hear, right?
Yeah.
And as people start to migrate towards, find each other where they're like, oh, I didn't like that and I didn't like that, it does have an effect on how people that maybe did not have an opinion originally could start to lean because they're like, oh, I guess a lot of people don't like that. Maybe that's more of like a personal flaw with this character versus a persona that they're putting on, and I don't care for that. But going back to your point about comedians, I know you didn't intend it this way, but it made me kind of think of this as well. Back in the day, like especially in those late 90s, early 2000s when comedies were really big, a lot of that stuff, especially on the TV side of things, were spearheaded by comedians. Like, they would have a stand-up act, a studio would like the comedian and say, we want to make you a deal, like we want you to be the center of this television show, or we want you to, be in this project because we like the energy, or we want to use some of your stand-up material to extrapolate that into a storyline and want you to play the character. But now it's it has we've seen a shift with comedians. A lot of comedians do that kind of stuff on their own through like a podcast or through their own social media accounts, and they don't need to wait for a studio to approach them. And but like Theo Vaughn, years ago could have probably gotten some sort of deal for a television show because he's wildly popular, right?
Hmm.
He's got a really successful podcast right now. He probably doesn't need a TV show, even if somebody pitched it to him. He certainly doesn't need a movie because he's got his thing and he's doing that, and that's sufficient for him. So that also takes away from some of the vessels that might be used in order to create the comedies that we used to see. Because a lot of
Sure.
those were built around the Jim Carreys, the Will Ferrells, these big kind of comedic presences that now have other outlets.
Yeah. And I do think that the ability for an artist to be indie now is unprecedented.
Mm,
You see a lot of artist coalitions. I'm using that phrase because that's what's coming to mind. I don't know what they're actually called, but essentially a bunch of artists get together and create a sort of artists commune where they're like, let's all split the cost of renting out this studio space and we'll all utilize it to create our own content. And I'll help you by being your camera guy and you'll help me by being my camera guy. And we'll all like sort of split the time in editing, and we'll all sort of like work together, and everybody's like building their own separate thing, but because it's a community of people helping each other out, you no longer have to pitch to big studios to get money in order to make that possible, because you're
yeah.
doing it on a smaller scale with people that you get along with, right? So like,
Yep.
and in that way it's a benefit because, dude, I can't tell you the number of times where I'm driving a set and I'm just like, dude, I hope there's nobody there that pisses me off today.
There's one more piece to this that I can think of, and tell me what you think about this. Streaming services. Netflix, I know, produces a lot of movies now. There was a time where they were just licensing properties from other studios, but now they create their own content and they throw money around a lot. I have heard on multiple occasions that Netflix specifically wants things that could be kind of put on in the background and
Mhm.
just listened to, or just kind of background noise. And
Yeah.
I think that has watered down what a comedic movie can be, right? It's watered down our concept of comedies, but also, they're just looking for something to put the content on there. So a lot of that stuff goes to a Netflix project versus a theater. So now you're getting both the removal from these blockbuster situations that we had before, but also it's just not to the same degree of content. And actually, too, it's also gotten rid of DVDs and Blu-rays
You
because
mean
that used
streaming?
to be a streaming,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, yeah.
Streaming in general is also taken out the secondary market. And
Mm,
that, again, I'm going to go back to my point about mid-level budget movies,
mm,
which comedies fell into. Some of those would not do like tremendous numbers in the theater, but they would make it up in DVD sales
mhm.
afterward. And
Yeah.
that's, I mean, some of those become cult hits. And that's why we would get more of them because studios would still make money, just not on the initial run.
I'm
The
gonna
licensing fee that happens for like a Netflix or an Amazon Prime Video, that does not come anywhere near the amount of money that these studios were making in DVD sales back in the
yeah,
day.
yeah. I'm gonna make two predictions, and you
Okay.
guys can fact check me on this in 5 to 10 years.
Please let them be lotto numbers because I could use that. So lay them on me. Do
Nine,
I get to request what the
14.
predictions are, please?
Um, so I think that streaming has disrupted a lot of things. And I think that there are new mediums that are arising that are going to combat what streaming has sort of done to the market. The first, and I think that this is going to be an unpopular opinion because I dislike them too, is the short reels um, medium. So I'm sure this is not news to anybody, but there is a growing trend of like short soap operas, which are targeted at people who are not looking really to invest necessarily in a movie or TV show, but they still want to get like that entertainment value, that sort of satisfaction from being involved in a story. Um, honestly, it blows my mind. I'm like trying to argue for them, but I genuinely don't understand how or why they do so well, but they do. It's a hugely growing market and makes lots and lots and lots of money. And I think that the emergence of this medium is actually going to force streaming services into one of two paths. Either they'll do this Netflix bullshit where they try and create stuff that is background noise and that you can throw on in the background, which is going to be in direct competition with this new vertical shorts medium, or they let that market develop on its own and they focus on actually good content. Because like that's been the sort of streaming argument for a very long time, is that streaming funneled a lot of money into quantity instead of quality, so you had a bunch of mediocre stuff. So and that's why you would get stuck on the menu page of Netflix with like, I don't know what to watch because all of this is just generally blah anyway. And then I think the other thing that will happen is in terms of bringing back the secondary market, because streaming services, particularly gaming, this is more prevalent in gaming, but streaming services have essentially said you don't own anything. We have the full and irrevocable right to remove access to any content we want at any time.
Even if
And
you pay for it. Yeah.
this is pissing people off because
Mm-hmm.
you used to own your crap. You bought a DVD, and as long as you had a DVD player, you could watch that movie. As long as you had a DVD player, a TV, and electricity, you could watch that movie. There was no one was going to be able to take that from you, save you getting robbed.
Yeah. I I don't know about you, but I am I'm hoping that we can start to see actual comedies again. And I have hope that the market may change primarily because we recently got a new Naked Gun movie. Did you see that?
I didn't because I'm not a comedy buff.
Okay. One of these days, we're gonna have to figure out what you actually do watch because it's like I feel like half of our conversations are like, "Hey, Morgan, have you seen this?" You're like, "I have not." How about this one? I have
Do you
not.
want to
Hey,
know?
this thing that everyone has seen, have you seen it? I have
I have
not.
not. But
I
do you
don't
want
watch.
to? You want
I
to know
don't
what?
watch any of the
You want to know what
genres.
I have seen? You want to know what I have seen? Do you know? Do you know those stick fights with the stick men? Do you know this?
No.
No, of course you don't. Uh,
what, what are you talking about?
there are these videos that are, you know what a stickman is, right? Those drawings where it's like just a line, two legs, and then like
Yes,
the head. So like
yes, I know what a stick
there are
figure is.
people
Yes.
there are people who do animations, like real intense animations of like stickmen
Oh my god.
fighting. And it's
Okay.
literally it's so simple because it's literally like here's the ground, it's like a line, this is the ground, and then there are these two stick guys and they're fighting, and like maybe one guy's got a knife and there's blood everywhere. And it's great.
And this is what you watch
It's
when
just
you're like, oh, I want to just curl up in bed and turn the TV
you
on
got
and
look, you
relax and
want
unwind a
comedy,
little bit.
you want comedy, stick fights are comedy.
You know, after you describe it, I have seen those before. I mean, years ago. I mean, I think I saw one, I don't know, like 20 years ago. Not 20, maybe that's too much, but 15 years ago, I think I saw one like as, like a YouTube thing or something like that. But that's not a movie. There's no storyline.
There,
I mean,
oh, dude, I
you're an actor.
disagree.
You're in the industry. Don't you watch films?
I
Like,
do.
what do you put out? What do you go to the theater to watch?
I have
They're
to.
not they're not going to do stick fighting in the theater.
For starters, I think there was legitimately like a stick fight feature film. I
Oh
I
Jesus.
didn't see it, but I disagree that there's no storyline because they absolutely like everyone that I have watched has, and to some degree it is like up to the audience because it's all nonverbal and it's all like your interpretation. I saw one very recently that I thought was genius. So
Okay.
it's this stick man who comes
Tell me
up.
how the stick man is genius. Yes.
No, no, no. The plot is genius.
No, no, I know, I know. Tell me how the stick man, the figures fighting. Tell me how this is
I'm gonna
an
have to.
Oscar-winning
I'm gonna
performance
have to
here.
like
I
drop
can't
a.
wait.
I'm gonna have to like drop a link to this video so that everybody can watch it because it's this stick man. He comes up and there's an equation, and it's like 4 equals 4, and basically he walks up to the equation and he starts changing it, and it starts off really interesting in terms of like this is like how math works, and like there are all of these things that could equal 4, and there's also all of these ways to write 4, like 2 to the power of 2, or like 1 to the power of 1 to times like so many times. It's like it starts off as like a math thing, and then the
Okay.
turn in it is that one equation creates imaginary numbers, and from there the equation starts to get its own personality, and eventually he gets to an equation where the integer e is introduced, and e has a vendetta against this guy, and you can interpret why, but he starts fighting the integer e, and it's just fantastic. It's like I think
Okay.
it's short. It's like 3 to 4 minutes. It's not even all that long, and it's just brilliant. It's like it's this conceptual fight of like a man's battle with math.
Uh, And you said that there might be a feature-length film that involves this
I
type of
think
thing.
s- I think there's like a feature length Stickman fight
All right.
movie. Yeah.
Anybody who's listening to this, if you want us to watch the feature-length movie and break it down on one of these episodes, let us know because I would be willing to do that for the show. I
So
cannot. I don't know that I can do it on my own free accord.
you're I feel like you're like very skeptical because you haven't like really seen
Oh,
any
I'm
of
I'm
them.
skeptical. Yeah.
But I think that after you see it, you'll be like, "Oh, no, this is actually," because some of them they're like badass. They're so creative. It's artistry for me, it's artistry at its peak because it's like who would have thought that like two stickmen, you could make a whole narrative with just like two stickmen.
I I believe you, and I believe that it could be interesting and fun, and it could be very creative. I don't qualify it as a movie. I just don't. Maybe I could be wrong. If I watched it, I mean, especially if it's a feature length film, there's got to be some kind of arc to it, I would think. There's got to be something that happens. Although, and maybe this is a hot take, people do consider Napoleon Dynamite a movie and a comedy. I
Let
find
me
it neither a movie nor a comedy because again, I don't see that there's any arc in that either. So if that can be a movie, then
I'm just
maybe the stick figures can have it.
what is like I'm just curious what you're qualifying as a movie because I just want to know like by what metric we're measuring whether or not something's a movie.
I think a movie is something that has at least one character. It takes
Mhm.
place in a setting, and there's
Mhm.
some sort of journey that takes place over an extended amount of time. I think if it's a few minutes long, it's not a movie. It's a short, but you can still have a successful story, of course.
Well, it's
But
a
I think if
short
you're having
movie.
yes, it's a short
It's a
movie, but I'm
short
talking about
film. It's
like,
a short film.
sure, but I'm talking about more traditional sense, like the more colloquial version of movie, a feature length film where you have characters take place of a setting, there is some sort of journey and, a beginning, middle, end.
Do you believe and I'm just trying to qualify the criteria so that I can understand because I'm reasoning out my argument right now. Do you think that minimalism is a legitimate style and do you believe that silent films were movies?
I do think minimalism can be a legitimate style, and I think it would have to depend on the silent film. I mean, like I do think silent films still can tell a story. You don't need to have vocals to tell a story. I mean, I've seen great stories told in very short movies where there's no dialogue at all. That's not the criteria. I'm just I'm struggling to determine how do we watch 2 hours or an hour and a half, let's say, of a stick figure. How do I care about the character, where his wants, his desires, what he's doing? And maybe there's a way. If there's a way, God bless the creator.
I think you would be surprised because another couple of set of questions that I would ask you is as far as your criteria go, does the character have to be named? Which in a silent film you possibly never learn the name of the character, and does the place have to be a real place? Um,
No, I don't think a character needs to be named. There's big blockbuster movies where it didn't have a named character. Kill Bill does not have a named, like the main character is they refer to as the bride, but it doesn't she does not have a name. Tenet has the protagonist. He never has a name. We don't know Edward Norton's character's name in Fight Club, which is a brilliant movie. We never get his name either. So I don't think that the character needs to be named. And what was the second question you asked
does
me?
the place have to be a real place?
No, of course not. I mean, how many movies do we watch where it takes place in fake fake places?
So I think you would genuinely be shocked by how much of a legitimate medium stick figure fights are.
Does it play in a theater? Not that
Um,
I qualify as like a requirement for a movie, but I'm just curious.
I wouldn't say that it needs to play in a theater. I've never seen one of these like in a
It,
theater, but to be
it
fair,
would
vertical
certainly
shorts
help
don't
your
play in
argument if
theaters.
it did. It's true, but it would help your case for it being a legitimate movie if it played in a theater. It's not a requirement,
Well,
but I would have a hard time
what
arguing
about
against it if a theater's putting it
what
in
about
there
straight to
as a
VHS though?
dude. Are you bringing up VHS? You're younger than I
Or
am. Like,
straight to DVD? What about straight to DVD? Are those not movies?
I said it doesn't. It's not a requirement to have it go to theater.
Oh,
Like
okay.
you can skip that part, but it does legitimize it if it does.
Are straight to DVD movies less legitimate movies than their predecessors?
No, you can have movies that are not in theaters. I think it's harder to have a something that's in the theater that is not a movie. Is what I'm saying.
I don't know. Jackass was in the theaters.
I mean, Jackass. It was a movie. It was a
Uh,
2 hour feature length movie. It
by
just wasn't our
by the
thing.
definition that we laid out, which is it must have a character, it must take place in a setting, and the characters have to go on a journey. Nobody in Jackass goes on a journey.
Their journey is to end up in pain, and they successfully do it.
I guess. I don't know. That feel
Their
like that's
want is
playing
to
loose.
create outrage. I don't know. I do think Jackass is a weird concept as far as fitting it into a movie mold, but
If
um,
Jackass can be a movie, Stickman fights can be movies.
all right, we might have to like legitimately do a watch of a feature length Stickman movie and then break it down in an episode. I actually, you've piqued my interest enough that I would be willing to do so.
I think your mind is going to be blown personally because they're
I hope it is. I'm always up for some sort of interesting story. So if there's a way that stick figure thing it moves me somehow, I would welcome it.
there you go. We've opened
So
Jason's eyes. He's walking towards the light.
we have digressed a lot, so I'm going to refocus us for a moment. Back to the idea of comedies. Is there a way that traditional comedies could be resurrected? How do we get these things going again? Like how could, and I don't mean you and I personally, other than like
Oh,
maybe
I
we
thought that
start
was the
pumping out
question.
our own
I
films,
thought that was
which,
specifically
hey,
like
let's
how
do
does
that.
Morgan and Jason write a comedy that revives the comedy?
Can I tell you something?
Yes,
I
please.
totally forgot about this, but I have somewhere, I don't know where, maybe I could dig it up. I have, I think, a full feature length comedic script that we could probably do.
Let us
I
know in
have
the
to find it.
comments if you would like Jason and I to revive the comedy medium.
I would have to find it. I think it would actually be very up your alley. I think you would enjoy this a lot. And it is like a buddy duo. God, I haven't seen it in a long time. I wrote it years ago. I'm sure it would need work because I would like to think that my writing skills have improved since I originally wrote it. But I think it was called Road to Montecito. It's about two gentlemen that go on a ridiculous journey. It is very it is I mean it is like a late 90s early 2000s type ridiculous movie. Um I'll have to see if I can find it and I'll send it to you and we can maybe we'll break it down on an episode as well. We can talk about see if people want us to actually make
Make it.
this. Maybe it could be a
Yeah.
future project.
I love that. Hey man,
Um
we are nothing but humble creators looking to make you laugh.
Time is always the limiting factor. If time was endless, the amount of things that we could come up with would be fantastic. It would be phenomenal. We would make the world a better place through our creativity. Unfortunately, how do you do all the things you want to do at once?
See,
You
I
can't.
the thing is though, with unlimited time, I would just probably have a live stream of my feet all day because that seems to be a successful medium.
Your feed is a successful medium. Is that
I
what
don't
you're saying?
know. I feel like that's a women only medium.
I
But
think
I
so
don't know.
too. No, nobody's pining for men foot. Yeah.
But
Anyways, so how does society resurrect traditional comedies? How do we bring those back?
well, I think the first step is let comedians be funny. You have
Okay.
to stop telling them what they can and can't say. I said my personal opinion, and this will be controversial. Bring back fat jokes, bring back gay jokes, bring back racist jokes, bring them all back. Bring everything, bring all the offensiveness back. You can't have funny without offensiveness.
And just to play devil's advocate here, earlier you were talking about voting with your wallet and that sort of thing. It's certainly possible that that stuff has gone away in part because people no longer wanted to spend money on it. So while I do agree with you that comedians should be allowed to be comedians and make the content, I don't know that that necessarily means it will be successful content.
So let me so I this actually brings up a point that I wanted to make way towards the beginning of the episode, which is I think that you need to let comedians be comedians, but we also need to stop just saying that anyone can be a comedian, like anyone can be funny. I actually think one of the things that led to the death of comedy is laziness. Being crude and cursing all the time is not ipso facto funny. I'm sorry for all the comedians who do that, who think that it's funny, but that is lazy, and I think that became the default, especially when you started saying to comedians, well, you can't make that joke, it offends the fat people. Can't make that joke, it offends the Mexicans. You can't make that joke, you can't make that joke, blah, 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 blah. And it was like, well, so what am I left with? I'm left with fart and dick jokes.
I don't know. I mean, I know that holistically people say that where there's like too much stuff that's risque, but I do agree with your point that uh, I think it was in your point somewhere, that good comedians make anything work. I think of guys like Anthony Jeselnik, who says all kinds of offensive stuff. He has never stopped doing offensive stuff, and he is a relatively successful comedian still. Dave Chappelle does get some flack for some of his content, but still
Some.
wildly
Dave Chappelle
successful.
almost got canceled. Are you kidding me?
I don't think he actually ever, I don't think he ever got almost canceled. I have not seen that. When did he almost get canceled?
After his
I
Sticks
know
and
that
Stones
people
special.
I saw people complain about it. I saw
He had to
Netflix
make an
refuse to take his
apology.
special
He had to
down.
make an apology in his following special. Same with Ricky
Did
Gervais.
you watch that special? He did not make an apology.
I didn't watch
He
it.
explained his position. He explained the position. He I forget exactly how it was, but there was no like, I'm sorry for the comments I made. He talked
I
about it
mean,
more.
like,
He said, you know, people took it this way.
does
I
anybody
meant
ever
it
say
that
that
way,
though?
whatever.
Does anybody actually say
Yeah.
like, I am sorry for like this thing that
Oh,
I
yeah.
did?
A
I've never heard
lot
anybody
of
do
times.
that.
Yeah.
Ricky Gervais
I,
also got caught in it because his special Humanity, which was wildly successful, he almost had a huge issue with, and he had to in his next special make an apology apologizing for what he said in Humanity. And he doesn't say, I'm sorry that I did that. He also takes the same tact of, this is my job as a comedian. I come up to make you laugh and like blah, 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 blah. Like he doesn't say, I'm sorry.
it, I don't think that's the same thing. I think if you come and you say, it is my job to make you laugh, sometimes I'm doing this, whatever, you know, I don't, I mean, explaining your position is not the same as being canceled. People can be outraged about stuff. And I do think that there are people that will go and say, I'm sorry, what I said, it was inappropriate and insensitive. Like you've seen that before. I mean, remember when Michael Richards had his big ordeal at the Laugh Factory in Hollywood or wherever that was at? And he went out there and he was screaming of the N word and all kinds of other stuff. He had apologies after that. That was an apology. I'm sorry. I was insensitive. I shouldn't have said those things, whatever. And I'm not saying that that was the wrong move to do. I think, you know,
I think it
he
was.
took a gamble. He took a gamble. And like, I also don't think that the bit was funny. Like, it was just not, I don't understand what he was doing in that moment. And other comedians have commented about it too, including Dave Chappelle, where he was like, I didn't understand the bit, or he said like I was not so much concerned about what he said as much as, and I'm paraphrasing here, but I was not so much concerned about what he said as far as like as a comedian. I was like, ooh, this dude's bombing. It just
Sure.
wasn't a good bit.
Well,
So
I mean, like, not
whatever.
all jokes are going to land.
And then he had like no career for a while after that. So I look at Dave Chappelle, and there was some outrage, didn't affect his career as far as I could tell. I mean, people, nobody is going to, especially a comedian, even if you're not controversial, your jokes are not going to appeal to everybody. Some people are not going to like your style of humor, or not going to like your special. And maybe they say, like, I don't think that person is funny. There's plenty of comedians I don't think are funny either. But I think when you talk about them being canceled, that's like, is something affecting their career afterwards as a result of what they said? I don't think that happened to him. But I think we're again
I think it
digressing
did,
from the
but
point. So you're to get comedies back, you want comedians to be comedians. I
good
agree. I think
comedians.
that's
No,
a
no, no, no,
step.
no. I want comedians to be good comedians. You're not funny just because you tell a bunch of dick jokes.
Right. You got to be smart about it, which is why I was mentioning Anthony Jeselnik. His comedy is very offensive, but it's also very intelligent and it's very well done. And I don't see people giving him flack for the terrible things that he says. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that he says are way more offensive than people that
Well,
have been canceled.
I think
But
that
I
they're
think it's in the
also
delivery and the way you do it. If you're good at the craft, people know it's it's comedy and it's not being sincere. It's
I
like you can go so far where it's like no longer offensive in the same way.
I don't know. I personally disagree. I don't think that an audience will inherently know if something is or isn't a joke by how you present the joke, because this is what happened. We had an incredibly PC culture stifle comedians, and I think that part of what will bring comedians back or comedy back is that people are just done. I genuinely think that people are just done with PC culture, and it's allowing comedians to just be comedians again because they now no longer have to tiptoe around particular topics.
I I personally don't think that, like, well, I think that that has curbed some of the movie industry, because look at a movie like I don't know what's a good example, like some of those earlier Judd Apatow films that are really raunchy, like Knocked Up has got some really raunchy moments to it. I don't think that people are as into that kind of humor now. So I think like PC culture may have had effect on that, but I don't think PC culture affecting individual stand-up comedians is having as big an effect as maybe that you think it does. But we don't have numbers on that, so like we can agree to disagree on it. But I don't think, like, I think that's an easy thing to throw a stone at, but I don't think that that's like making a huge impact. But sure, let's let comedians,
No, there are
good comedians, be
comedians.
good comedians. That's fine.
Comedians literally have talked about it though. Comedians have literally said, "Yeah, PC culture makes it difficult for me to put together a set." And
Sure, as a
it's
stand-up
not
comedian,
yeah, and it's not a handful. It's a lot of comedians have said this. So I think to have the perspective that PC culture does not play a role in the death of comedy is a little bit short-sighted. I see what you're saying, which is
sure.
that it is a combination of things. I'm not trying to make the point that PC culture is the be all end all. I'm just saying it's a much bigger factor than I think that we have admitted in the past. And I think that people are over it now, which will naturally lead to comedies coming back.
I think that only a small subset of comedy films were. We talked about how some comedians were pulled to get parts in movies, right? That were based off their stand up. So I think that that would affect that. But there's so much more to comedies than just that. So I don't think, like, even comedians have not gone away, right? So even if there's it's affecting a significant amount of comedians, this is just one piece of the puzzle. I'm not opposed to comedians being comedians and doing their thing or whatever. I also prefer that comedians be good at their craft, because I think
Yeah.
then you can push the boundaries more because it's done well. But I think it's only one piece of the puzzle. But I think in order to get comedies to come back in general, that's one thing that as society we kind of remember, that comedy is comedy and not everybody relates to it. And, sometimes it's not for us. We're, because of the content or because of the delivery, whatever the case be, fine. I think the other thing that's going to bring them back is that uh, we try to keep looking like the hybrid genres, like you kind of talked about before, where we have movies now that are action movies with some comedy. Like, we got to play with that balance a little bit more. Maybe some of that is going to be, finding a different line in there and starting to show like comedies can also kind of tack onto something else that maybe it helps permeate the other markets we're talking about, or the other audiences that were maybe not going to the theater for those in the past.
That wouldn't bring back
um,
straight comedies though.
I think it's a stepping stone. I think when you start and you start warming people up to those ideas again, and then you pull away and get, because it's not going to happen overnight, you have to start
Sure.
somewhere. So I think starting with the hybrid genres that are working now, and then start skewing them a little bit more comedy, and then eventually in a few years you could start making them mostly comedy, and then maybe you do get the pure comedies again.
I I don't disagree that I guess you would have to warm people up to it. I just my thing is if you have to prime an audience for something, do they really want
i'm
it?
not talking about I'm not talking about like a domestic audience. I think one of the problems is that all of the markets are not in sync, because some of these have not had these before. So I think you do have to prime those markets, especially when you're trying to acclimate people to a different sense of humor. And that's why that could be effective. And I could be wrong. I'm not a studio head. I mean, that's my opinion. You know
Well,
what I
if the
mean?
argument is that comedies at large have died in all markets, then no matter where you started, you'd have to prime the audience, and that still brings me back to the question of if you have to prime the audience, then is it even something that the audience wants? So it would be you'd be gambling. That would be a straight gamble.
Well, yes and no, because this is what we were talking about before. It's not that comedies often fell in that mid-level budget, And it's not that they didn't make money, it's that they didn't make ridiculous amounts of money. So either we need to find studios that are willing to say, I just want to make money, right? Like, I don't care if it's $1 billion or $5 million.
I mean, we might
I
be
just want
there.
it to be profitable.
We might be
And
there
I
because
don't,
studios have been losing money for the past like 5 years, so we might be there.
which it may be, and I hope that that's the case because I think mid-tiered movies in general would be great for all genres. But the problem that we have now is that everybody is trying to say, like, how do we go, like, how do we swing for the fences every time? And honestly, we don't need a huge $1 billion blockbuster for every movie. Some of these, like, smaller things could be great films that are Oscar worthy or profitable
Yeah.
or wildly entertaining. I mean, I think we need a studio that's going to go, hey, look, you guys don't want these things. Well, we'll take them. And we'll put out 10 projects that are all $10 million each, to call for a budget, and then make, a
There
few
was
million off of each of those rather than make one huge project that costs us 700 million to make $1 billion.
I would have to go and look back at when this happened, but there was a guy who did reviews, or there's a guy who does movie reviews. There's a lot of guys who do movie reviews, so that I know that that doesn't help. But I can't remember his name off the top of my head. But I watched a review that he did, and he was talking about this specific issue of why aren't there mid-budget movies anymore? Like, why aren't there new ideas? Why aren't there new stories? Why is everything a remake or a sequel or tentpole stuff?
Yeah.
And he literally was like, "Well, this past summer there were four mid-budget movies that studios took a chance on, and guess who went to see them? Fucking no one."
Yeah. And this is the problem, is that we've reached a point where studios think in order to make money, you have to use something that's got familiar IP.
Well, they have a
And
point though, because this guy's point was they took a chance on four movies, and these were different studios doing these four different mid-level budgets, and none of them returned a profit. So the studios kind of have a point where they're like, well, yeah, if we want to get butts in chairs, this is what we have to do.
I would be curious what those projects were,
I'd have to go back and
uh,
look.
because honestly, not every movie is going to make it. So, like, am I surprised that there's a mid-level movie that doesn't succeed? No, like that can certainly happen. But why didn't it happen? I mean, why would all four of them fail? Is that because they gave too many notes and they were trying to still appeal to too many genres? Studios have to be willing to take risks, but the right kind of risk. Just to say, like, hey, we're going to risk it by making a mid-level movie doesn't necessarily mean that that's the formula that you go with. Sometimes it's like, hey, maybe the risk is we're going to build this movie, but we're only going to try to market it to one specific demographic. And that's the risk we take. But because we're actually tailoring it to a group that we think is going to like it, instead of checking off the box for every single possible demo, maybe that's the risk that does get that movie seen. Because when you water some of that stuff down, especially with a comedy, which again, people's humors are different. Sometimes it's, let's say it's something that's topical, right? A movie that comes out, if it's got a topical premise, by the time it gets produced and comes out, that might not be relevant anymore. So
Sure.
maybe that's why it fails. But like, there's a lot of questions that you can ask about why a movie will or will not succeed. I'm glad that they took a risk on four of them. I don't know
Yeah,
why they
and
didn't.
I
We'd
think
have to
that
dig into those movies to figure it out.
it's always hard to know why a movie succeeds or why it doesn't succeed. And people point to a lot of different factors. What I found interesting about this particular review was that these were four mid-budget movies that studios took a chance on, and I can't remember what the movies were, but I do remember thinking, oh, these are novel concepts. This is exactly what we have all been vying for. We wanted
Sure.
a novel story that wasn't a sequel, that wasn't a remake. It was a new idea, and this to some degree contradicts what I said in the last episode about how there's only so many stories you can tell, and it's about how you tell the story. So, but that particular issue aside, these were hypothetically what all of us have been wanting, and then nobody went to go see it.
Yeah, and without knowing what the movies are, but maybe that's also the problem. Did they market them the same way? I mean,
It's a good question.
there's a lot of there's a lot of things that go into movies. Also, what did the movies get released against? Because that can make a difference too. All I know is it used to be that there would be like 45 to there was like 45 to 65 comedies that were put out every year, and that's ones that would succeed in the theaters, ones that would be kind of middle of the road, some that would go straight to video, whatever. It is now down to like 4 or 5. Like a studio might put out like 4 comedies for the entire year across all platforms. There's a dramatic decrease in what they're putting out there. So if it's also a numbers game, like maybe 4 didn't succeed, but like maybe back in the day you had to put out 100 to get however many you got to succeed, and now they're saying, well, we didn't do it with 4. Well, yeah, of course not, because you've limited this, you've greatly reduced the swing you were taking.
Yeah. It's a numbers game in a different way, though, because if you spend $1 billion on a film, then you're going to have less budget to produce other things. So, in order to produce at that caliber, you'd have to
Right.
reduce the budget on everything across the board in order to have money to produce other things. So, it's a numbers game in a different way. Um, I would personally be on the same side of the fence as you, where I would prefer there to be more option. Like, I would prefer that they produce more things, but to what level? Because this was the Netflix problem, right? This was
Right.
they just churned out content like it was nobody's business, and we didn't like that.
Well, right. And Netflix, they bring their shareholders number of subscriptions and time watched. That's why they don't care on the quality for everything, right? Because if you put it on in the background, if it's easy to listen to, I mean, there are things that I have read where they will specifically ask writers to not dumb it down. I forget the term they use, but like they will essentially water down a script. This way it's easy to kind of follow along when you're not paying attention. Like that's the goal, right? So you're not going to
Right.
get good content out of it because they just want it to stay on and keep playing.
Yeah.
So I think, to your point earlier, right? You only have a budget to get so many things made or whatever. That's why I think a big one of the ways that I think that comedies could be resurrected, and I think the way that people can make a difference is it's going to be one of these small creators that are putting together stuff on like a YouTube, right? Like a lot of people have actual, scripted content, not like a short or a reel or whatever, but they're making like their own episodic shows or like their version of a movie and stuff like that. Somebody is going to be able to come along, make something that is high quality for just a microscopic budget in compared to something else. And if they can either self produce or self distribute, or a studio's like, this is costing me pennies to buy from you, or like, I think that's what's going to jump kick it. We're going to have to find somebody that can do it for such an incredibly low budget, and it makes bank, just like how Blair Witch Project did with the horror genre, where they made it for pennies on the dollar and they got a huge
Here's
return. That's what's going to
yeah.
kick studios to go, I got to find the next thing like that. Where's
Yeah,
the
so
next YouTuber that I can get an idea from and have them build a feature length movie for $20,000?
I don't here's why I don't think that that's gonna work for comedy. I think that you're absolutely right that if that were possible, that could be an avenue. But I don't think it's my personal opinion is I don't think it's possible. And the reason that I don't think it's possible is because you're essentially taking the template for a horror movie and applying it to comedy. And the reason that that template works for horror is for all of the reasons that I said, which is that horror doesn't have a real plot and it's essentially just all about the monster. Comedy is specifically about the plot. Comedy is
Yes.
specifically language oriented and is very labor intensive in terms of creating. And there's no way, I don't think there's any way to do a comedy on a horror budget or with a horror template.
See, but that's exactly why I disagree, because A comedy is just like somebody can be funny. Somebody can learn the craft of writing jokes, practicing the timing. You don't need a lot of special effects. You don't need a lot of prop designs, intricate sets. Like you can create a story that is interesting and funny, get a group of people together and create something that could resonate as a comedy. Like I think that's totally look at the movie Dodgeball, right? You have a ridiculous premise about a people going like playing an intense level of dodgeball with people. Like you could have somebody build something like that in their home with friends. You need quality equipment to make sure it looks like a certain level of professionalism, but that is a type of movie. That movie works because it's silly. The actors are committed to the characters are outrageous, and that's like a pure comedy. But there's no intricate CGI there that's going to
Yeah,
limit somebody's ability to do that. You can do a funny movie on a low budget. I just think it's going to take time, effort, and it's going to take a lot of honing of a craft to do.
I think that you can do. I'm not trying to say that you can't do comedy on a low budget. I'm saying you can't do comedy the same way that you can do a horror. You can literally make a horror film for $5,000. I don't recommend it. It's not going to be all that great, but it will be a good horror film in the sense that it will achieve what horror films set out to achieve. A comedy, because it is to some degree plot centric, and we'll take your dodgeball example. I think that you're discounting the amount of time that it takes to sit down, come up with that idea, flush out a plot, and actually have something that drives the narrative. And that's something you don't have to do with a horror film, because with a horror film, all you have to do is have a spooky premise and lots of jump scares. And that is 100% watering down the genre of horror. And there's more that goes into it, especially when you talk about blockbuster horrors. But you can strip down horror to its bare essentials and make it at a lower budget. I don't know that you can really do that with comedy, because comedy is just more involved. Because if you don't have a good story, the comedy won't. I mean, like, yeah, I guess you could put people into a situation and have them be funny, but then you have Jackass.
All right. Well, on that note, why don't we move on to trivia and wrap this up? How's that
Oh,
sound?
trivia.
Yeah, trivia. And I don't think you're going to do well in this one.
I'm not.
You tend to struggle with trivia, which is why I love making you do them. This quiz, this trivia quiz comes from funtrivia.com, and it is funny movie quotes, if you can guess what movie they're from.
Oh, well, that's not gonna happen unless they're cartoon movies.
Yeah. Well, maybe you can use deductive logic. Who knows?
That's
I
literally my
have
only chance.
handpicked
This is my only shot.
these. I've not seen the answers to these, so I'll play along with you.
But you know all the answers.
I do tend to know more answers from movies than you do, but maybe some of these will. I mean, maybe there's a couple Disney's in here. I don't know. I haven't looked over the list very well, so I'm not going to promise that.
Well, place
All
your
right,
bets,
let's
boys and girls.
let's give it a shot.
The odds
Question
of
number one.
Jason winning 1 to 2. The odds of Morgan winning 1 to 1,000. Place your bets.
Question number one. Quote is, "Do you like Billie Holiday? I love him."
Oh, I thought you see. I thought you were literally asking me if I like Billie
No.
Holiday. I don't know who Billie Holiday is.
Okay, that's a whole nother thing. But what either way, I mean, it's a famous musician from the past. It's a singer. Um, your options are: is it from Clueless, Dumb and Dumber, The Wedding Singer, or Billy Madison?
Okay, so I have actually seen Billy Madison, and I have actually seen why am I blanking on it? You just said it. The first one that you said.
Clueless.
Clueless. I haven't seen it in its entirety, but I have seen bits and parts of it, and I have seen Billy Madison. And if I remember correctly, it's not in either of those. So that leaves us with a
Okay.
50-50 Wedding
Dumb and
Singer
Dumber or
or Dumb and
Wedding
Dumber.
Singer.
And I guess if it's a famous singer, I would hedge my bets and say Wedding Singer.
Interesting. I get why you went to logic. I think it's Dumb and Dumber, and I should know that because Dumb and Dumber is one of my favorite movies, but I'm not positive. So let's see. Is this not going to tell us? Oh my God, it's not even going to tell us the answer till the end? No way.
Okay.
All
So we're
right.
gonna have to remember. I have to write down my answers now. I have to
I
remember
have
what I
the,
said.
no, it'll tell me. It lets me keep them on here. So we'll go back and see, I guess. So question number two, Rolling Stones, Street Fighting Man, G7. Is that from Dirty Work, Beavis and Butthead Do America, Mallrats, or Can't Hardly Wait?
Just a list of random things. I don't know.
Yeah, I have not seen Dirty Work.
That's a quote.
Uh,
Hold on. That's a quote that people
it's a
say.
quote.
This is a funny comedy quote that people. I've
Yep.
never heard anybody say that.
Yeah, I don't know either. I don't know the context. I'm just gonna go out and I'm gonna throw out my guess, which is I'm guessing it's Mallrats, which is a movie I've seen. It's been a long time, but there's a character in that, I think his name's Brody, who is just like a very frenetic kind of guy. And I can see him saying that. So I think it's that. If it's not that, I'm guessing it's Dirty Work because I
Really?
haven't seen the movie, so
Because
I
I
don't
was
know.
thinking it's Beavis and Butthead, just because Beavis and Butthead sounds like a show or movie where you say dumb things,
Are
and
you not
that's
familiar with Beavis and Butthead
no.
either? Oh my God. Okay. How about this one? You sold my dead bird to a blind kid?
That sounds funny.
This one is a submit your answer. It is not a multiple choice.
Oh,
Um,
well then I'm dead in the water because I've never heard that. It sounds
I
funny.
can tell you for sure, 100% certain it is Dumb and Dumber.
Oh, is it really?
Yep. Next one. And this one, I will guarantee that you will get. If you
Really?
don't, I'm going to be so concerned for you.
Dude,
All
the
right. The
comments are gonna
quote
be
is,
so lit up with hate for for Morgan. I don't
the,
dislike comedy movies, guys. I just haven't seen a lot of them.
apparently. So the quote is, you know very well that the babysitter's dead. Your options are Drop Dead Gorgeous, Big Daddy, Clueless, or Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead.
Oh, it has to be that last. It's got to be the last one.
It's gotta be right.
But that's why it's not the last one.
All right, so here's a fun one. The quote is, have you heard the one or have you heard the one word let me try that again. The quote is, have you heard one word I've said? Yeah, anus. Is that from
Yeah, anus.
Tommy Boy, Lost and Found, Black Sheep, or Beavis and Butthead Do America?
Beavis and Butthead.
I also think it's Beavis and Butthead.
I'm just going with it now because I've committed to the bit at this point.
You might know this one. I think you may have said you've seen this movie. If peeing your pants is cool, consider me Miles Davis. Is
That
that
sounds familiar,
meet?
actually.
Is that Meet the Deals, Dumb and Dumber, Billy Madison, or Mallrats?
Say the quote again.
Peeing your pants is cool. Let me do it in character. It's presented like this. If peeing your pants is cool,
Yeah,
consider me Miles Davis.
I was gonna say I think it's Billy Madison, but I just wanted to hear the quote again.
And actually, I stand corrected because I don't think he delivers the line. I think it's actually an old lady that delivers the line in that movie.
But
But it is
I
Billy
still think it's
Madison.
Billy Madison though, because this is the scene where he's like out in the schoolyard and he's like he's like peeing on the wall or something with another kid, which is just a weird dynamic.
I think you're actually thinking of Big Daddy. This is when a kid in his class, because the Billy Madison, he goes back to school and he's on
Right.
like kindergarten or something, and there's a kid who wets his pants, and he feels really bad about him. I think they're on a field trip, and he's trying to
Oh,
make him feel
yeah.
bad, so he pees his pants as well, or
Yes.
puts water on his pants
Yes, yes, yes.
to try to make it. And he's like, "Oh, pee your pants is the coolest." And then an old lady says that.
Yes, yes, yes.
All right, this is the most ridiculous line that may be in any movie ever. So I'm going to try to get through it and read it correctly. I doubt you're going to know what this is. I think I know what it is, but we'll see. All right. The quote is, Remember that time when we went on that trip to that meatpacking plant and you got sick and you threw up in the bag and then the principal came out all around class and I was like, dude, isn't that your bag? And you're like, no. And I'm like, I'm thinking it is.
That sounds like
And
super
this is
bad.
a I don't, it's a good guess. I actually think it's
I
21
haven't
Jump
seen
Street.
super bad, guys. It just sounds like a super bad quote.
It does sound like a super bad quote, but I'm pretty sure it's 21 Jump Street.
Oh, is it?
Um, all right, how about this one? Quote is, now take off my Van Halen shirt before you jinx the band and they break up. Is that Dazed and Confused, Happy Gilmore, The Wedding Singer, or Empire Records?
It's not Happy Gilmore. So, and well, it's Van Helsing's shirt, so it could be the wedding singer. If I feel like, you know what, I'm gonna double down. It's the wedding singer.
Okay, it is for sure. I'm positive that one.
Okay.
All right, I think you'll get this one too. This quote is, hell no, damn alligator bit my hand off.
Oh, that's
Is
you
that?
don't even have to give me the list. That's fucking the golf one. Happy Gilmore.
Yes, nice. All right, last one. Quote is, have you ever robbed a bank? No. Have you ever climbed Mount Everest? No. Have you ever said that you can see why women find Sean Connery sexy? No. This is a fill in
What?
the blank.
Fill
I
in the
have no
blank.
idea on this one.
James Bond. I don't know.
Have you ever robbed a bank? No. Have you ever climbed out Mount Everest? No. Have you ever said that you can see why women find Sean Connery sexy? No.
Yeah, see, that
And
sounds
the
like
only
something
clue
from a
it
James
gives
Bond
me,
movie.
but Sean Connery was in James Bond.
Exactly why it would be in a James Bond movie.
Kind of breaking the fourth wall there. All right. I don't know what this is. It says it does give a clue that it's two words. The movie is two words,
James
but
Bond.
I don't know.
It's
Sure, let's go with it. The very well known as a comedy, James Bond. All right. Let's see. All right. So, first movie was Do You Like Billie Holiday? I love him. That movie was Clueless. I actually got that
Oh, it
one
was
wrong. I thought it was
Clueless.
Dumb and
So wait,
Dumber.
what did I
It was.
say? I forget what I said.
And I don't remember, and it does not
What were
give me
the?
the
Oh, it
selections
doesn't
again.
have the answers. I didn't say Clueless though. So
All right, so then that weird one, that Rolling Stones Street Fighting Man G7, that was not Mallrats, it was Dirty Work.
it was dirty. Well, that was the other one that you were saying, and so I was just
Yeah, I hadn't
wrong.
seen that one, so I was just guess. You sold my dead bird to a blind kid. That one was in fact Dumb and Dumber.
Okay.
You have not seen that
I
movie?
have not.
Well, you absolutely should. It is
I
so
should
great.
because I do like Jim Carrey.
There's a
Ace
line in that
Ventura.
movie,
Ace Ventura,
another good
Pet
one.
Detective.
There's a line in that movie that's one of the best ever, where after, right before they sell the bird, right? So to set up the scene, these two guys live in an apartment together. They're both complete morons. There are bad guys that have mistaken them for someone else, and they break into their house and they decide to rip the head off of the one character's parakeet to send him a message because they weren't there. So they come back, find the bird dead, and they're so dumb that they don't realize that somebody ripped it off. They think that the bird its head just fell off. So they're kind of down on their
Interesting.
luck. They just lost their jobs, and Jim Carrey says, we got no jobs. Our pets are it's so good. It's so good. All right.
That's funny. That's pretty
um
funny.
so have you ever heard of the one word, have you heard once that word I said? Yeah, anus. That was Beavis and Butthead Do America. We were correct there.
Oh, how about that? I got one right. Pure luck.
If
Just
peeing your pants
stumbled
was
into that
cool,
one.
consider me Miles Davis was in fact Billy Madison.
Yep, yep. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. See, I know stuff.
Um, oh man, I got this one wrong. So this remember that one time I went on the trip, that long one? That was
That's
not
super
21
bad.
Jump Street. It was Can't Hardly Wait.
Oh, I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I've seen that. It's a Jennifer Love Hewitt movie, if I remember, or she's in that. I remember. It's like
I don't
a
know who Jennifer
teen
Love
high
Hewitt
school movie.
is.
And watch some movies.
You
Now take
you
off
should
my
be
Van
my
Halen.
you should be my dad because he literally says that to me all the time. He's
You're
like,
an
"How are
actor.
you an
Watch
actor?"
some film.
That's literally what he's like. "How are you an actor?"
Now take off my Van Halen shirt before you jinx the band they break up was The Wedding Singer. You got that one right.
Oh, okay.
Oh no, Damn Alligator Bit My Hand Off was Happy Gilmore. You got
Yep.
that one right.
That one was pretty easy. That's a pretty
And
central plot point.
and the Sean Connery one was not James Bond. I know
Oh,
you're
whoa.
shocked.
No
It was
way.
it was Dirty Work. Again, a movie neither one of
Again?
us seen. So
I don't like this trivia one. Whoever made it, that's a lot of repeats, and I don't appreciate it.
we got 5 out of 10 right on that. That's pretty rough.
That's
I
pretty.
expected better out of both of us.
Dude, I've seen like modern comedies and the Marx Brothers. So outside of that,
It is what it is. We a year from now we'll revisit this topic. We'll watch like a bunch of modern comedies and then we'll try it again and see how it goes.
I have hold on, because like now I have like comedies that I have to watch, but also in the horror episode, I was prescribed like watching a particular horror something or other. So got to do that as well.
You should watch a lot of movies. Watch any movies.
I
Like,
watch movies. I watch movies
okay, oh, I believe you. I believe you. All right.
sometimes.
So, any final words on the rise and fall and potential
Yes, please
re-rising of comedies?
please believe me, guys. I watch movies. I watch them. I watch movies.
Anybody who's listened to the show would beg to differ. Until we find a movie that you have watched, I will believe you've never seen a movie.
It's that's fair.
Do you watch your own movies when you're in a project? Do
No.
you watch them?
No, it's actually I'm very Johnny Deppian about it because I'm very focused on my craft, and when I get onto set I'm very focused on doing my job and making sure I don't slow down the day. And then afterwards I'm like I don't for starters, I don't really want to watch myself doing a thing and potentially judge it and be like I could have done that better. But also I was watching an interview with Johnny Depp once, and Johnny Depp was like after I'm on set and I film it, it's not my job anymore. It's somebody else's job. It's the director's job. It's the editor's job. Like it has nothing to do with me. I have no say after cut is called.
Yeah, but nobody is saying that you would. It's just, aren't you curious how the project turns out?
I mean, like, I'm curious how the project turns out, but that doesn't mean I have to watch it. That's like I'm curious about how Barbie did, but I didn't watch Barbie.
I don't think that those are the same thing at all. I mean, if you're going to do a project, for anybody who doesn't know, when they film a movie, you don't normally film in chronological order. That by itself, I think, is reason enough to see the movie after
But I
you've
read the
done it,
script. But I read
because
but I read the
you,
script.
yes, but you know as well as I do that not all that stuff ends up in the final cut. So,
Sure.
like, to see how it unfolds, not to mention, do you get the whole script for everything you do? I've gotten stuff where you only get the portions of the script that you're in. You don't even get to see the whole story sometimes.
Yeah, it depends on what role I've booked, but I shockingly I have gotten the full script for many projects that I've worked on, and
Interesting.
perhaps that's luck of the draw because everybody's experience is different. Depends on what project you're working on. Depends on the slant of the writer, the director, the casting director. So I have actually gotten the full script for a lot of the projects that I've worked on. I haven't gotten the script for a lot of projects that I didn't book because I didn't book them. I've even gotten the script during the audition process for some projects.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you've been in more projects than I have, but I like to watch the stuff afterward because I on the other hand, I do want to see how I did, and I will be critical of myself as you were afraid of, but I at least can go back and go, oh, I should have done this way, or
I
I
can't
don't like the
palate
way I
it.
did
I
that,
have
or
a
like, hey,
funky
that worked.
nose.
Yeah, but like, and sometimes I can't either. But how do you grow and learn if you don't see, like, oh, when I did that, I thought it was looking like this in my head, but it didn't look like that. Now I need to know for next time I should do it this way or
Yeah.
try something different at least.
Yeah, my everybody's process is different. I am not judging in this moment, everyone. So do not, just don't, okay? So
All right, what is the judgy?
Jason has his process, and I think that there's a lot of people who use that process. My process is having a very kind and generous acting teacher, or acting coach. That is my
That
process.
um yeah, it's just
I
wild
don't
to me
like.
that you wouldn't want to see the
I don't
results,
want.
but
I don't like. I don't like. I even hate having to cut my self tapes. If I could have somebody else do it, I would.
interesting. All right. Well, on that note, I think that's a wrap on the cast
We
backstage
didn't
banter for
name
this
this
week.
one.
We did name it. I just forgot to say it. Would you like to know the name of this
What's the name
episode?
of this episode?
So I named this episode "Laughing in the Dark: The Disappearance of Movie Comedies."
Oh, that would have been helpful to know before I went on my tirade about how comedies suck.
But anyways, that's a wrap on this week's episode of the cast backstage and banter. Until next time, keep the reel rolling, and we'll catch you in the next scene.
In the next scene. Boo, 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 boo.
Pew, pew, pew.
That's like I should have that foghorn sound.
That's what I was trying to do at the end there. Yeah.